Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Don't want to do too much to this intro. We got a lot to talk about with the film, so I'll get us going and then we can begin. Okay, so this was a first. You recommended a film instead of me recommending a film.
Yep. I went through a stint in my younger years where I watched a bunch of Kurosawa movies, and I thought I'd recommend one.
Well, thank you for it because this was genuinely great. uh, and it's kind of, not to dwell on it too much, but it's kind of amazing just how many people ripped off this format without understanding what made it good. Like it invented a new style of storytelling, really, which is pretty impressive. But usually we start by summarizing the plot, but that's kind of difficult with this one.
Right. I suppose, very briefly, what the story is about is, three people are caught under a ruined gate, the titular Rashomon, and um, two of them, I think, was like a monk and something else.
A monk, a woodsman,
The woodsman
and
is the one who
the commoner.
is the
I
third.
think
Okay,
is
so okay, if it's
I'm
just
pretty
called
sure
the
it's a
commoner. So
commoner. Yeah,
so the monk and the commoner are talking about this court case and not being able to understand it and what's going on. And then the woodcutter comes up and they basically talk about this court case. And the thing about the court case was, um, there were three witnesses and all of them gave conflicting testimony.
yeah,
And the three witnesses are, and this is sort of the first twist, you might say, uh, the bandit, who, the I guess you could say the knight, the samurai,
yeah,
yeah, and then there's the woman who was his fiance or his wife.
yeah.
Um, and it's a very gruesome case because it's murder and rape, but
It,
each of the three, despite
yeah,
there being a murder, each of the three gives testimony. The bandit, gives an account of himself. Then the woman gives an account of herself, and then through a spiritual medium, the deceased samurai gives an account of himself, and they all sort of paint themselves as the, maybe not necessarily the hero of the story, but as the most decent character in their stories.
yeah. As sympathetic as they could be.
Yeah, exactly. And they conflict in details. They don't account for all of the situations. And it turns out that the woodsman was, or the woodcutter was the one who had stumbled upon the scene of the crime and reported it. And so he says, "Oh, So he sort of starts the story by recounting his experience. But then afterwards, after they've sort of gone through the three stories and they're wondering, who could be telling the truth, he sort of speaks up and says, "Well, actually, there's a fourth witness, which is me. I was too afraid to speak up, but all of them are liars, and this is how it went."
Yeah, and even that story is likely not very accurate either.
Or at least incomplete. Um,
Incomplete. Yeah,
and then at the very end, and I think this is the real heart of the movie, is they find this crying child with some expensive robes laid over it, and the commoner says, I'm just going to take the robes. Like, someone's going to do it, so might as well be me.
yeah,
And this upsets the woodcutter. But then the commoner, being a rather clever fellow, says, like, "Oh, and what about those missing items that that we knew were in the case, but they went missing? You probably stole them, didn't you? You liar! You're no
yeah,
better than the rest of them." And this, he really takes to heart. But then you decide, so after the commoner makes off with the clothes, he decides, "Look, I'm going to take the child with me," because, and he says to the monk, "Look, I have six kids at home," or was it six, or
yeah. It was six.
yeah,
Yeah,
I have six kids at home. There's not a huge difference between taking care of six and seven. I might as well do it. And the monk, who was sort of on the verge of losing all hope in humanity, thanks him, and that's sort of the end of that's where it ends.
Yeah, I think the most compelling character in the whole thing was the monk. Because I think if you're anybody who tries to live morally and upright in a world that's not so moral upright, you can connect with him pretty deeply. The
Yeah,
frustration of of the way it is, and the
he,
selfishness, and how everybody does everything to save face, basically.
that and also he's just the most relatable in that he's the mouthpiece for the modern audience, right? So he has some lines at the start of the movie. He's saying like, um, you know, these days there's so many natural disasters and wars and all such of horrible things. But the most horrible thing I can think of was this crime. Why is it horrible? Because it's so uncertain. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
um, that's why at the end the resolution is that the woodcutter, despite himself having his faults, decides to do the human thing. Um, it makes sort of humanity human again, right? Is it's sort of this response to it when we live in this time of turmoil, when we live at a time when truth isn't truth and you can't trust humanity to be human. There's no way to regain faith in humanity except by acting human.
Yeah, yeah. It From a filmmaking perspective as well. There's a lot of nice quality and detail. Um, Specifically, like as we mentioned, the way the story is told is very unique. I think it's the first of its type, but that sort of storytelling has been adapted in a much cheaper way in many, I guess. Oftentimes, it's like a detective show or a mystery movie or something, but they kind of miss the point. In that the whole thing is supposed to be, well, it's uncertain, and you live in uncertain times, and as you said, the only way is to the only way to reconnect with that sort of thing is to be human.
It's probably not the first to tell a story where you're not sure who's telling,
Yeah, I
where
just
the
mean,
inaccuracies
yeah,
begin, but it's probably the best one put to film up to
yeah,
that point, and maybe still today. I don't know.
yeah. It's the I believe they actually named the effect in storytelling after this one, which the
Yeah,
Rashomon effect.
yeah.
Um, It's actually funny, connecting to that, and we could use this to segue into actors. Evidently, the cast would come up to Kurosawa constantly, be like, "What actually happened?" But and he never told him because obviously that's not the point of the movie.
Right.
Um, Speaking of the cast, I think it's really impressive how each of them plays the same scene again with a different performance for each of it. And particularly, I was impressed by that desperate fight, like the final one that's shown.
Right.
Um, because the ragged breathing and the wailing and how pathetic everybody was. It's in comparison to everything we've seen before. Which is why, of course, that one's probably the closest to the truth. Um, yeah, and also, if we're gonna talk about the cast, I appreciated the medium. Her facial expressions and certain things really was startling. Kind of caught me off guard. um,
I did.
I don't know if you have any particularly favorite performance.
Favorite performances. I mean, sort of the star of the show is definitely Mifune's. I mean, he's sort of the most prolific actor, I think, right?
Mm,
And he shows up in a lot of other, not just Kurosawa films, but certainly he's got he steals the show in like Seven Samurai. He's uh, he's all over the place.
he's great.
I It was really interesting to me how much the bandit's character, as he sort of laughs at everything, is a sort of a scorner.
Yeah, yeah. His The difference in philosophy in these characters is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Um, it is. I mean, just how selfish everybody was in the process of this thing going down, and this horrible event. It's I don't know. it you can really understand the position of the people who are recounting the story after the fact. Um, I will say I didn't. The score was a little dated, I'd say. It didn't really. It was fine, but it wasn't anything to write home about.
It's certainly not like its own creature.
No,
Um,
it feels like it was just taking off of what American films were doing in the 50s. You know, the style of music.
really.
Um, yeah, at least from what I gather and remember, it doesn't feel. I mean, there's some songs that use different instrumentation, but a lot of it, like I noticed particularly during the chase scenes, and when the woodcutter is first going through and finds everything, the way that music um, goes with the film and the type of music it is really seemed to remind me of a lot of these 50s films.
Hmm.
But that could just be me. What are your thoughts on the music?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, I guess for Kurosawa, well, one of the things is really the sound design more so
Oh
than
yeah.
the music. I think really steals it, as well as you can't really leave out the shot composition because this is definitely one of those films where it's much more every frame a painting kind of thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. The you mentioned before when we attempted to watch it, just the effect of the heavy water
Right.
flow and the rain. I was trying to figure out whether that was real rain or if it was actually like a hose or something. But either way, the effect it has is great. Especially, I mean, you and I we enjoy the rain pretty much.
I don't know, but I would have had to. If I were to guess, I would say that they just waited for real rain.
Yeah, I suppose it
uh,
could have just been monsoon season.
it could have been, although that would probably be inconvenient to film at that time. I don't know.
True. Well, Kurosawa probably would have been willing to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we've talked about the characters, we talked about the plot, we talked about the score. Favorite scenes or standout scenes for you?
Standout scenes. I think
It's kind of hard to say for this one because you kind of see the same scene over and over again in different lights.
I have mentioned in a previous video that I really like framing.
Hmm.
I really like narrative framing. So for me, the real heart of the movie is the beginning and the end, or at
Yeah.
least those are the parts where I don't know, the unsettlingness of real life is comforting as opposed to the sort of the nice sunshine that suffuses the entire middle of the
Yeah.
film is sort of horrific in quality. Um, but there's, and maybe it's because we're Oregonians, so we jive with the rain.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
yeah. But there is something to be said about the contrast there between the sunny day and the beauty of the woods there with the acts that are taking place.
yeah, and just the fact that that's sort of a repeating and it's playing weird tricks with time, um, which afternoon sunlight tends to do,
Yeah,
at least emotionally. So, but right, so I like the framing effect, and it's also where the real human heart of the movie is, right? Sort of,
yeah,
you begin with these ordinary people and you end with them coming to their conclusions, and those are your conclusions.
yeah. And
So,
I was gonna say the point of this movie isn't even really the event itself; it's how it impacts everybody around the event.
right, and it made me cry a little bit, made me tear up. Um,
Understandable.
it really it does that rare thing a movie can do, or a good story can do, where it highlights the sort of agonizing emotional element of making the determination towards the right thing. I'm not sure how to exactly put this right, but the almost the edge of despair that the monk comes to, and then
Yeah.
the fact that you don't teeter off, but you're sort of with the snap of of relief and release, you're you're confirmed in deciding to live rightly. I think that
Yeah.
that moral drama there is extremely moving to me.
I agree. It's funny during the process of watching it. It reminded me of that meme I sent you recently, as silly as this is to bring up. But it's like, um, uh, pour one out for the men for the men in fiction who keep their faith in dark times. um, yeah, that's how I felt watching The Monk. I can appreciate that a lot. I think my favorite sequence has to do with the medium. I think I really liked how that was presented. His dialogue being spoken out of her,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the closeness and claustrophobia of that as well.
Right. It's just also just uncanny, like in a very ordinary sense. It's
Yeah,
extremely uncanny.
it was disturbing, and some of her facial expressions really did creep me out. I gotta be honest. If somebody looked at me like that in real life, I'd probably cross the street.
Across the street.
At the very least. um, let's see. Uh, I believe. Oh, we got. We can go over a few bits of trivia too that you might find interesting.
Sure.
This is probably the reason that the Academy even has a best foreign film category. Uh, because it was so good that they just had to accept it in. Um, a lot of and also something interesting is this is a very early use of handheld shooting.
Oh,
If you notice in when people are being followed in the woods up close, that's somebody holding a camera and just like following along with it, and that
makes
really,
sense.
yeah, that really works. I think for what they're going for there. Um, let's see. I believe the bandit is the only one who was given an actual name in the film, which is funny. Um, I'm not sure why that would be, but everybody else is more just. We keep what we've watched, or maybe you haven't because you didn't watch Stalker. But films where people's occupations are their names.
Right.
It keeps coming up for me. I don't know what that means necessarily. It's just something.
This is the thing. Yeah. So Tejo Maru.
Yeah, I told you. Yeah, yeah, that's the bandit, I believe, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. The director of photography apparently had the sign that says Rashomon at his home until his death in 1999. So that's something. We kind of plowed through things as much as there is a complexity to this plot.
We could talk a little more about the individual stories that they give. It really is a nice touch how they're all extremely sympathetic, right? They all
Yeah.
express something that truly deserves some sympathy, right? It's just that they're lies.
Yeah. Just constant.
Or at least they have to be partially lies, right? But
yeah,
the truth born of the lie and the lie born of the truth.
What was that? What was the line? There was a line. I believe it said. It was about lies. It was. No man tells the truth after he says he does not lie, or something along those lines. I think.
Oh, what was it? The commenter was saying something
Yeah.
like that. It's like, yeah, sure, I should
Yeah.
believe you.
Yeah.
Of course, you're telling the truth. That's what everybody says.
Yeah. It's great that the commenter was the most practical of everybody in the film. He's kind of no nonsense with the way he's talking on everything.
Well, it's no nonsense, but it's also that sort of the Thursimican figure who was an absolute cynic.
Yeah.
Those are really intolerable.
Yeah,
so to
true.
speak. That's who you don't want to be.
What was it? Not another sermon. I don't mind a lie if it's interesting. Was one of his dialogue lines, which is pretty funny. speaking of that, I just want to touch on our initial attempt to watch this because we try to watch these films together. I just kept messing up where I was trying to get it for, and what was really funny was the moment when I realized that the film version did not have subtitles, um, and so I ended up at the exact moment somebody was saying I don't understand or it doesn't make sense. I said basically the exact same thing. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't understand. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's exactly what he said.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's don't know if they'll ever get put out, but that'd be a funny little addition.
Yeah.
um, let's
It
see.
is a short film,
Yes,
which is
it's only
one of
90.
the reasons we picked it. I was gonna say like let's watch Ron, but
Yeah.
that's what 3 hours. It's a Shakespeare play.
Yeah, and after last week, I loved watching Stalker,
Yeah.
but it was a 3 hour long movie, and I'm a tired man. Even today, I'm very tired.
Mhm.
Too many nightmares of samurais and and bandits.
But you said it was about a ghost that you had a dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, in black and white, everything looks a little spectral.
A little spectral. Maybe that's another thing to comment on, right? This is a black and white film.
Yeah, we tend to we've had a penchant for those,
Yeah.
which is
Uh,
fine. That's the
they're
point.
easy to miss, right?
Yeah, it's why we both
Unless
want
you
to go
get out
back
of
and
your
watch
way.
them. Oh.
But that really draws attention a lot to the use of light. I know I'm saying this is a very commonplace thing to say, but no, for a lot of the previous movies you've seen, the use of light has been really nice, and maybe that's something that's a little bit missing these days. I know other people have sort of mentioned like um, a lot of fantasy films because they're so CG,
Yeah.
um, they kind of lose that nice effect that actual sunlight produces, or sunlight like lighting, right? The replication of natural lighting. Um,
Yeah.
I know someone said that. I forget who it was, but someone said that about the Lord of the Rings films being better than the modern CG sort of
Because
replications of that.
yeah. I think an issue with modern film, and maybe it's just me who's noticed this, but I, I think they tend to leave lighting for after the fact with digital
Mm,
editing. They with LUTs, which are lookup tables, which kind of, I guess to summarize, kind of help add contrast and color for footage and make it all looking consistent.
I see.
Because if you're not somebody who's messed around at film, it can be very difficult to get your footage looking exactly the same without the assistance of something like that.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas I don't know, I don't even want to call it practical effects, but a lot of
just
intentional.
yeah, like
I mean,
on set
yeah,
or naturalistic lighting.
on set naturalistic lighting does it for you. You know, the 100% accuracy of analog, so to speak.
Yeah,
And also just filming in black and white tends to draw attention to this because it's one of your few tools is contrast. But even outside of black and white, like I know back when we watched Halloween, sort of at the start of all of this,
yeah,
one of the things I really enjoyed was the natural sunlight.
yeah. The hilariously not Californian sunlight in that film.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, not
I
to
don't know, maybe
digress, but
maybe if that's so much of a running thread, um, I wonder if we can watch, when we're choosing movies in the future, we can find something that really does interesting things with natural light or
yeah,
lighting
yeah.
effects.
I'm sure there's a list somebody's made somewhere, like
Quite
on
possibly.
Letterboxd or something.
I know. I feel like there's an almost spiritual reality to film here. On the one
Yeah,
hand, film is produced by shooting light through a film. That's what film is.
yeah,
And so it's like moving stained glass. And if we recall the theory of light, the theological and artistic significance of light, advocated by Abe Suger way back in the initial period of Gothic architecture when it wasn't called Gothic. This clearly ties everything together in a vast spiritual thread of. Okay, well, I may be stretching things a little thin, but I really do mean it when I say I think light is pretty significant in terms of
It's
at least my personal interest in
yeah, I
film
agree.
scenes. So I really
I
do want
like
to see it.
yeah. I don't know. I tend to like thinking about film as just a series of pictures, which is what it is. But I think a lot of people try to end up thinking of it as the whole thing, the cohesive thing, and to me that doesn't do it justice. You have to think about each frame. I mean, at least if you're somebody who cares,
Right.
if you're somebody who cares at all. And clearly Kurosawa cares. I think from what I can look at in his filmography, I don't think there's anybody who competes with his run of quality. I can't. Is there a bad film he ever made? I don't know if that's possible.
Um, I certainly don't know of any, but
Yeah.
I haven't gone through his whole. I was about to say discography. I haven't seen all of his films. I've seen a few of them. I mean, I saw Run, like I said. I saw um, Yojimbo, um,
Hmm.
Ikiru, or was it Ikuru?
All ones we considered watching.
Yeah, and
Um,
I highly recommend them. You know, go watch all his films. But
yeah, I'm sure we're gonna go through them eventually, one by one. The focus is for us both to be able to watch something that we haven't seen before,
mhm.
or not just something we haven't seen before, something good that we haven't seen before.
Yeah,
Good
it's also
for any reason.
this is also the first like non-Western film we've seen.
True. Um, I guess
Oh,
technically I watched Stalker, which is a
oh
Soviet,
right, that's
um,
true. Yeah, I didn't watch
but
that
which was incredible. But
on this segment,
and
I should say.
yeah, on this segment, yeah, for our streams. I mean, I've got an episode about King of Kickboxers coming up, which is technically, I think, you could consider it a Thai made film, although it stars American actors and the conflict is very American, the production's very American. Um, that's with Len Kabaczynski, if anybody knows that. He's a very very intelligent guy, especially when it comes to using a budget well. Um, you know, one of he loves making B movies, and it was great talking to him. I'm looking forward to that episode coming out. Um, let's see. So, I guess we can move on to final thoughts.
Yeah, final
Um,
thoughts. I want to hear your final thoughts first because I recommended it.
yeah, true. Fair enough. I'm used to being the host in this, so to speak. I really should have put you as the host here in that little subtitle thing. But I think it was well worth the watch, especially if you're somebody who wants to get into Kurosawa. That's 90 minutes is relatively short for a film like this. You could easily fit that in whenever. I'd say the structure of the film leads to some interesting ideas, and I think the conversations that are brought about by it could be great. I actually, if you can't, if you don't do streaming like I do, you should watch it with a friend and discuss it with them because I think it'd be interesting to see what they thought about it. Um,
Yeah.
Performances are great. Like I said, I didn't really care for the score all that much, but that's the least important thing there, probably.
It didn't
In this
at least
situation.
actively take away from the film,
Yeah,
like with the
unlike yeah.
restored Cabinet of Caligari.
That's something. That's something worth mentioning. Is at some point we pre-recorded a couple streams because we have time coming up where we're both gonna be a little busier, and we watched the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and the score that on the restored version that we watched was genuinely the worst. I think.
It
Um,
had good moments, but it was
yeah,
often distracting.
yeah, completely, and it was no real consistency in the style of music either. But that's for another day. All right, and your final thoughts, because you're the one who recommended it.
But yeah, my final thoughts. Well, it's a real gut puncher. Um, Kurosawa doesn't always do it, but he has the talent for it. And watching it again, getting reminded of the painful feel good at the end was really nice.
Hmm.
And it's it looks beautiful. It definitely makes you think, which, well, and I think
Jogging the
it's
noggin.
especially it has a thematic which is compelling even today, or especially today, because
Yeah.
it's always going to be, there's always wars and rumors of wars, and all sorts of horrible things going on in the world. And the theme of not being able to trust people or trust what's going on, not knowing what's going on, is one that's so live right now
Yeah.
that I think
Yeah, go
everyone
ahead.
can relate to the central struggle of the film. Um,
Yeah, the idea of man's inhumanity and the inability to trust your neighbor. It's always going to come up, especially in times such as these where they're particularly politically
yeah,
divided. Um,
I think it's definitely a film that feels like it comes from a place of personal pain and struggle, and those tend to really make look,
yeah,
you bleed a man and you make a film or you write a book. That's the way the best are made, and I think this is
agreed.
one of those best.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. I really did appreciate a lot about it. Um, Granted, it'd be strange for me to say that to watch a film in here that I didn't appreciate something about,
Well, yeah.
but still. um, okay, so I guess what do we have coming up? Next week, I have a stream with Len Kabazinski discussing King of the Kickboxers. I also recorded a Q&A for his Patreon. You can go and sign up for that if you want to see that early, and at some point I'll be releasing it on my channel as well. Probably in a month or two, just to give him some time to build up the momentum on it. And then, I believe next weekend you and I are going to be recording a video or two with YouTuber Rico Talks about the Bionicle movie, which I think you and I might geek out more about than anything we've discussed so far.
It certainly takes me back.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. And then at some point, and I don't know if Sleep is gonna be involved in this. I'm gonna be doing a riff as well with Rico, with Rico Talks. So that should be good. Anything else you want to mention?
I think that's it.
Oh yeah, technically there is one more thing. Soon
Oh,
enough, probably today, I'll be getting you a copy of the edit for our first co-op stream
oh
of Dark
yes.
Souls. I just want to run some copyright tests to make sure I haven't caused any problems that way.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. I saw we were up to 4 or 5 at one point, so
Oh, wonderful.
even for you lurkers, I'm glad to have you around. Hopefully, you decide to stay. Look forward to the show getting better. So everybody, have a good rest of your day. I guess it's Super Bowl Sunday, so if you're somebody who's into football, enjoy that.
Yep.
And we will see you around. Stay copacetic.
Stay copacetic.
Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by. If you like what you saw, please remember to subscribe, leave your comments down below with your thoughts on the video, and leave us a like. If you really like what you saw, you can go down the description and click the Patreon link and support us there. Have a good rest of the day. Stay copacetic.